Welcome to my channel, my name's Chance, and it's time to talk about some board games. Now, today I'm going to be continuing my top 100 series with this video being the top 10. So this is the last one of the series, finally made it. I'm going to admit that this was a lot more work than I anticipated. I did not stick to my schedule, but oh well, we're finally getting this video out here. And last thing I'm going to say is that I feel like the top 10 is probably the least interesting of the video. You know, like, I think you find a lot more of the hidden gems down in those other lower ranking games. Those are going to be the ones that you're like, oh, I've never heard of that. I'm going to check that one out. Now, I do hope that I have some games in my top 10 that you're like, oh, hey, I haven't seen that on another list, but there are definitely some in here that are like, oh yeah, that one's popular, so that makes sense that that's there. Yeah, so let's just dive into this and find out what those games are, starting with my number 10, and this is going to be Wizards of the Grimoire. Now, this is probably one of those ones that you may not have heard of unless you follow my channel, because I made a review on this one and I absolutely love Wizards of the Grimoire. This is a card dueling game. You're going head to head with your opponent. You both have, I think, like 60 health or so, and you're just trying to whittle your opponent's health down to 0. Whoever gets their opponent down to 0 first wins the game. Pretty straightforward victory condition there. You know, I've complained in other videos about, you know, managing or calculating the score at the end of the game. I love games that are just the straightforward victory condition. You take your opponent down to 0, game over. Now, Wizards of the Grimoire is going to be a tableau building game where you have basically an open draft. So on your turn, you're basically going to draft a spell from this market because you are wizards and you're fighting each other as wizards. And you're going to draft a spell and then you're going to cast the spells using these mana cards. Now, mana cards are numbered 1 to 4, but the numbers on those mana cards doesn't really matter most of the time, because to cast your spells, it generally just requires a number of cards to cast. So you're going to see a spell and it's going to be like, this costs 2 cards to cast. So you just take out 2 of your mana spells, you put them face down on that card, and you get to cast that spell, and the spells are going to do various things, generally manipulating the mana flow in the game or doing direct damage to your opponent. Now, there's going to, or potentially blocking some damage. Those are a little more rare though. But it's going to be like, oh, hey, you're going to draw mana cards if your opponent has less mana cards than you or something. Or you're going to steal mana cards from your opponent, or you're going to draw an extra set of 4 mana cards, or you're going to just deal 5 damage to your opponent, or it's going to be a delayed spell, and it's only going to activate when you remove mana from the spell, because one of the things that happens at the beginning of your turn before you cast any spells is a cooldown phase. You're actually going to remove 1 mana from every spell at the beginning of your turn, and that's going to cool down those spells and try to ready them up, because you can't cast the spell if it has mana on it. So if you have one of those spells that costs 2 mana, you're going to have to spend 2 mana to cast it, and then you're going to have to wait 2 turns for that thing to cool down. And a lot of these spells are going to actually manipulate that cooldown. They're going to cool down spells faster, maybe shift mana around so you can cool down spells faster. And it just has a really fun system of managing the mana flow in your tableau while trying to maximize your efficiency with doing damage to your opponent. I just find it to be incredibly engaging. It is one of these games where I find that some dueling games, one player can kind of just run away with the victory, and Wizards of the Grimoire, I would say, is a very tight game. I feel like you are just trying to find out these little small percentage improvements over your opponent to try to eke out like 1 more damage per turn so you can kind of get to that finish line. And I find that this makes for a great experience in a 2-player game because it leaves both players feeling like, I was in this. I could compete in this and I had a good time. And it's not one of those games where it doesn't feel like my choices matter, because like I said, you're trying to get that like minute improvement in Wizards of the Grimoire to try to beat your opponent. And if you can find that, it is so satisfying to come out and to eke out that victory. So yeah, if you want to learn more about Wizards of the Grimoire, check out my review. I could talk way longer on this one. I think it's a brilliant game that is a little underrated, or maybe just unknown on BGG. So yeah, there you go. And I'll mention that there is the expansion, standalone expansion, Shifting Sands. I do find that the base game plus Shifting Sands, they're both very similar. Shifting Sands adds like 1 more rule to the game. I think there might be a little more of the mana manipulation puzzle in Shifting Sands, but for the most part, I don't think you need both of them. I do have both of them, and I'm combining the spells deck, so I have a whole lot of variety in my game, which I'm excited to do. But there you go. So that is my number 10, Wizards of the Grimoire. Let's move on to number 9. Now, this is a game that is going to, don't click away, okay? Just This is gonna be Zoo Vadis. So Zoo Vadis is Rainer Knizia's negotiation game. Now, I will admit that I feel like with this game, I am lucky to have found a few groups that have had a great time with Zoo Vadis. Negotiation games can be a huge turnoff for some players, but I feel like if you have the right group, if you're the right personality for this type of game, like it can really shine. And I really do. I've started valuing like the experiences that a board game delivers more than trying to win a board game recently. I would say when I started board gaming, it was really, I was a little more into the Euros, just calculating, a little more solitaire. I didn't want to interact with people. It wasn't the social butterfly that I am today. I'm not a social butterfly. That's a joke. But no. But I found that, these Euro games, they deliver a very similar experience, very calculating, very crunchy. But if you want to explore these other experiences that bring out those social experiences with board games, I feel like there's really something to get there. If you are kind of allowing yourself to enjoy the experience, to not just like be like, I have to win this game and I had like that's the most important thing. I think Zoo Vadis is the type of game where it can have some really fun experiences of the game as long as you have the right group to deal with it. So in this game, you're going to play as a zoo animal and you're basically trying to move up to the star exhibit. And if you reach the star exhibit, you are now in contention for victory. Then you have to have the most points to be able to win the game. And this is one of those things with Rainer Knizia. It has this dual victory condition thing where you have to fulfill both conditions to be the victor in the game. And what's cool about the star exhibit is that there is a limited number of spaces and one player can actually take multiple spaces. So you can actually block out players from even being in contention for the win. And this brings up some really interesting negotiation dynamics because it's like you have to determine what does a player value more in the game. Do they value being in contention for the victory or do they value having the most points at the end of the game? Because there are probably some players in the game that are not going to be able to achieve both those things. And it's kind of like, can you take advantage of that in your negotiations? It can be a cutthroat game, but one of the things in the game, it does promote you to make deals with other players. It says that players that make more deals are probably going to do better in the end. So you want to make deals that are going to, it's one of those things where you want to make those deals where it's going to slightly advantage you for that deal. You want to make sure you're moving your progress forward. It's a very political game, There are some other things in the game where you get like the animal powers that you have. You can't use your own animal power in yourself. That is something for you to negotiate away. So it gives you this little asymmetric ability where it says that I think I can benefit this other player in this situation, so I can actually promise them the use of this ability for a future turn if they manage to give me a vote to move out of this location. And just to close this one out with Zoo Vadis, because I find this game to just be absolutely brilliant, absolutely fascinating, and just a fun experience around the table if you manage to get that right group. But to see if you have that right group, I'm going to describe to you one of my situations. This is one of my situations in Zoo Vadis. I reached the end of the game, and there was one player, his turn was right after mine, and I realized that I could either move into the star exhibit, blocking him out. I already had a person in there. I didn't need to be in there. I could just move someone in and block that person out, or I could try to extort them for some point tokens. I basically looked at them and said, yeah, so how much are you willing to pay me for me to not block you out of the star exhibit? Like, how many tokens are you willing to give me? So I was extorting them to see if they wanted to take that risk, to see if they wanted to win the game. Now, this is where people might complain about that maybe king making in some way. Maybe they're like, I'll give you all my tokens to go into that final exhibit. But I feel like this is not, so that's not what happened in my game. The person's like, you know what, I'm going to charge you. So I said, I'll take 3 tokens, and then I won't move in there, and you can still have an opportunity to move into that spot. And they decided, you know what, 3 tokens is worth it. That might still put me in the line for victory. I think I might still have enough. So they had to make that choice that was best for them in that moment to see if they could manage to eke out that victory. Of course they didn't, and I think I actually lost that game too, even though I extorted that person. I did not extort enough, apparently. But that is the type of situation that can pop up in Zoo Vadis. So if you don't like the idea of that one, then stay away. But if you want to go for one of those experiences, if you think you have the right group, oh man, it can really shine. Moving on to number 8, and this is we're going straight through games that are going to be very divisive and probably have you guys clicking away as fast as possible or clicking to the next chapter. Number 8 is going to be Nemesis Lockdown. Once again, this is one where you need to have the right group, but you also have to have the right person to teach it. And now I might be bragging a bit because I'm the one that taught it, and I feel like I was kind of the right person for my group to teach this. I put in a lot of effort into learning this game because I knew that it was going to run smoothly only if I knew the rules, if I kind of internalized the rules. Now, I'm not going to say I managed to internalize the rules by the time I played this game, but I feel like having it where I was able to quickly look things up, quickly know the answer to the questions, I knew kind of the flow of the game pretty well. I knew what was going to happen. I played some practice rounds before even bringing this game out. It's one of those games where you want to know it as well as you possibly can before you bring this to the table and introduce it to your friends. Because the less time you spend in the rule book, the more time you guys get to spend experiencing the game. And I feel like Nemesis Lockdown is just an experience. It is I'm gonna call it like a guided D&D session in a way, you know, because like there's a limited amount of control players have. You do have control over what's gonna happen, but the game is just working against you. It is like just breaking you down every single turn. Everything you do is just causing aliens to come out, you're getting attacked, you're being chased by aliens, and it's just like, why is this happening? Like, this is the worst thing ever. A lot of people are going to hate that style of game. But if you're willing to get into it, if you're willing to enjoy that semi-co-op experience, if you're willing to kind of like bash at your friends at the table and just have a good time to experience that story. Because I remember one situation in Nemesis Lockdown where I believe I was like the soldier or something. I had managed to get a gun. I managed to get a gun, and there was another player that was in an area, and they were making some noise. They were trying to like achieve their own objective. They were like, I'm just fumbling around. Then they had to draw a token to get an alien attack. They, of course, draw the Queen token. The Queen token is like the second alien that came out of the game was the Queen. The Queen's the most dangerous alien in the game. And they're like, okay, now I'm screwed. And I'm like, well, you know what? You could probably help me achieve my objective. So I kind of want to rescue you. And I'm in the room next door. I have a gun. I think I'm going to run in and try to save us. I run in and I start firing off my gun. I miss every shot. I literally just spray the wall. My guy's just boop, 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 boop. And he's like, what? Yeah, like, and that was a terrible gun noise. We're gonna work on my sound effects. But so I'm just spraying the walls. I waste all my actions on that one, and then I'm just like, okay, guys, we're getting out of here. I chuck my gun at the Queen and we book it. And that's the experience in that game. Was just like, I was a soldier, missed every single shot. I apparently just ran in the room. I panicked. I was like, oh my God, what is in there? And then I just started shooting the walls. I throw my gun and I'm like, we're going. This is useless. So that's the type of experience that I get with Nemesis Lockdown. Now, I have played Nemesis, the base game, the original one. I do find Nemesis Lockdown to be a little more engaging. It has a little more gamery mechanics, gives players a little more control over what happens in the game with that whole power system that you have going on, and allows you to clear noise tokens, which is super nice in the game. So I find Nemesis Lockdown to be a little more engaging, but it is kind of like a story experiential game. It's one of those games where if you are going in it to be like, I want to figure out how to achieve victory in this game, you're probably not going to have a great time with it. But if you're willing to go into it and like, hey, I want to experience some fun stories and have a good time, yeah, Nemesis Lockdown might be for you. So that does it for number 8. Let's move on to number 7. Now, this is going to be a much more popular game that you probably have heard. Well, you've heard of Nemesis Lockdown probably, but this is one that probably shows up on some other people's list. This is an Eric Lang game, and this is going to be Ankh, Gods of Egypt. So Ankh this has become my top Eric Lang game. I think one of my friends has convinced me that this is better than Blood Rage. Now, Blood Rage I do really enjoy. I find it to be easier to introduce. It is a very chaotic game. Ankh though, it's something different. It's something special. With the whole area control component of it, you have these asymmetric gods. Well, they're barely asymmetric. They have a little asymmetry to them. They have their own little power, but you're going to be upgrading your gods over the course of the game, and you can take different paths depending on what you're trying to achieve in the game. So you can kind of set up your own path towards how you're going to achieve victory, how you're going to achieve those devotion points which you need to win the game. Now, the really cool thing about Ankh, like probably one of my favorite parts about this, is this shared action track. So basically you're going to go up, you're going to look at the action board, you're going to take one of the actions, you're going to shift that action pawn forward, and then you're going to take whatever action that was. Like it's move or deploy troops or upgrade your god or whatever. One of those things. But you're going to move this little action pawn on that shared action track forward. And then what's interesting about this is that whoever moves that last space forward on that action track gets to trigger like this special bonus. They get to trigger this thing where they get to like claim a temple or something, or maybe put down a camel caravan and like split the map in two. And it's just such a powerful move to be able to be that one to move that track, to move to that final space. So other players are trying to manage it like, oh, I don't want to put you in a position to take advantage of that final space move, so I don't want to use that track because I don't want you to win this thing, so I want to use this bottom track. But if you use a lower track, you're not allowed to use one of the tracks above the other track. So it puts these restrictions on you around what you're allowed to do if you don't want to do that track that's going to benefit your opponent. So you have a tense decision right there with that track-based system. Then deploying your troops is so tense because you have the map has numbers on it, and each one of those zones is going to actually process in order. So you can actually do things where you manage to put out troops so they are going to process in the correct order, so you can play your cards in the right order. And the combat system has a hand management system, which if you watch my channel, you should know that I love hand management, and you're going to do kind of like the Concordia system where you're going to play a card face down simultaneously. If you're in battle, reveal it, and then you guys are going to process your cards, and then your card is going to go into a discard pile, but it's your discard pile and it stays face up, so players know what card you have already played. They know what is left in your hand and what you have available to you in the future battles, so they can actually make a decision based on what they know you have in your hand left. So it's just a game with multiple systems that I really, really love. Let's call out the elephant in the room with Ankh, and that is going to be the merge system. So there's a certain point in this game, if you have more than two players, the final two players are the players in last. At a certain point during the game, they could potentially merge and become one god. Now, I will admit, when this happened in one of my games, it seemed like this doesn't seem like a huge benefit, because I feel like it's like a 10% boost in that player, because now those two players, they have one god they are sharing. They only get to take one action. Usually you get to take two actions in your turn, but they take one action, and they have like a little thing that breaks the rules in a way. But it's like it seems like a 10% boost in what they're able to do, like a very, very maybe minor boost. So it doesn't feel significant. And now they're working together and they're trying to work as a pair to win the game. And not a lot of, I don't know. Some people don't like this idea, but it's kind of like the catch-up mechanic in the game. It's like, okay, these two players are kind of out of it. You know what? To bring them back in, we're going to give them this like little 10% bonus. And if they can manage to pull this off, they can race ahead and take the lead and stop that lead player from winning the game. And I feel like this is a fascinating way to handle a runaway leader problem. Like, just give them that slight improvement so they can just kind of get up there and like take out that leader. And yeah, if you have, this is one of those games, once again, some people are just not going to have a good time with it. They're going to be annoyed with it. They're going to hate the idea of it. But if you do the teach well, if you manage to pull people in, you like say, hey, this is what's going to happen. Like, be prepared. If you're in last, this is going to give you the opportunity to win as a team. Like, get people pumped to win as a team, and I think it might go over pretty well. But yeah, Ankh is just a brilliant, brilliant game. I think it's probably Eric Lang's smartest design. Although I do find that, like I said, Blood Rage, easier to introduce, easier to teach, easier to play. So yeah, you know, pick your poison with those two. Rising Sun, it's not even on my top 100. I've played it once. I want to play it again, but it is, oh man, it feels like it's going to require way more plays than Ankh and Blood Rage to kind of understand how it works. All right, that does it for my number 7. Moving on, we are into number 6, and this is a newer game on my shelf that I've got a decent number of plays, probably like 7 or 8 so far, and this is Earthborne Rangers. Now, Earthborne Rangers is, I've been playing it solo. I haven't actually played a multiplayer yet, but I am absolutely loving it solo. This game is I hate to use the word cozy or maybe chill. It is a chill experience. Like, this is my morning cup of coffee game. Like, I brew a cup of coffee, go and sit at my table, and I want to play some Earthborne Rangers. Like, I absolutely love the system of this game. It does feel like this exploring. Like, even the terminology in the game, in the rule book, you have like this area that's within reach of you. You have this area that's like nearby or something, and then the area that's like the actual zone that you're in. So everything, or along the way, I think you have along the way and then the path or whatever. So yeah, it's just, the thing is very evocative of kind of going out and exploring. And you're kind of like, you have these things where you can interact with any of these zones, but the things that are like within reach, they could kind of get in your way. They could bother you along the way. So they could like just potentially reduce your chances of achieving this or fatigue you. Like, maybe you want to interact with something that's on the path or whatever, and it's like, oh, I got this little critter over here that's like harrying me. It's like, oh, I'm near its nest or whatever, and it's bothering me, and it's going to cause me more fatigue if I want to interact with this thing further away, and I don't take care of that thing. And then you have other cards that you can kind of help out with this. Like I have a pet hawk basically that I can put out into play, and he can actually help me with the creatures in the way. He can like scare them off for me and be a little more aggressive. I have things where I can like connect with the animals a little bit more. I can be like, oh, I understand the creatures of the land, and I can connect with these and try to get them out of my way. And then I have things that allow me to overcome obstacles on the path. And the story is just fascinating so far. I'm really engaged in the world. I love this kind of, it's like this post-apocalyptic, like the race on this world. They built up some super technology and got to this place, and then they were wiped out. They're gone. Don't know exactly why, but they are now gone. And now we're kind of building up this new society that is really focused on being connected with the land and trying to be a little more synergistic with the environment that they're living in. And yeah, just that confluence of things with this exploration, this little sandboxy style world where I get to choose the path I want to take, and just seeing how this story develops, like I'm thoroughly engaged. I actually did not think I was going to enjoy Earthborne Rangers that much. I thought I was going to like it. I thought it was going to be an interesting experience, but like I am absolutely loving playing this game. So I hope to have a full review out of it in the future, but for now, I want to keep on playing, and maybe I'll have some playthroughs in the future as well. I do have one playthrough up, but I might restart a whole session, and we'll see how it goes. That'll do it for number 6, and we are moving on to number 5. This is going to be another 2-player game. This is Pagan, Fate of Roanoke. Now, I mentioned Wizards of the Grimoire is like my favorite like dueling style card game. Pagan it's another head-to-head game. It is a versus game. One of you is playing as a witch, one of you is playing as the hunter. So, but I don't know, I don't put it in the same category as Wizards of the Grimoire, because it's very different style. Like Wizards of the Grimoire, Radlands, and Star Realms, like that thing where you're trying to compete with the other player to reduce their health to 0. It's a different type of puzzle, right? Whereas Pagan, Fate of Roanoke, it's a bit of a deduction puzzle. It's kind of like hidden movement style deduction. I don't know how to describe it there. But essentially, the way this game works is that you're going to have a set of villagers out on the board. There's I think 9 villagers, and on your turn you have essentially worker placement. You're going to be placing your worker pawns. You have some like basic actions you can take on your side of the board, but you're going to mostly be placing your workers out on those villagers. So you're basically visiting those villagers, then they're going to spread out like these influence discs onto other people. They tell you how many influence discs you can place on these other zones of the board or other villagers on the board, and then you get to take the action on that villager. A lot of those actions are going to be things like drawing cards or increasing your influence available to you, or playing cards, or just various things, and they're all very simple. Like everything's very simple to understand, but the thing is that the witch is trying to achieve their ritual. To achieve their ritual, they need to have a certain amount of like, I forget the name of the tokens, but they need to have like their ritual tokens out or whatever. And there's like this threshold. Like they need to get 3 of their basic tokens out, and then they can upgrade to a favor token or whatever. And then they need to have a total of 3 favor tokens. And then once that person has 3 favor tokens, they can perform their ritual. But the problem is that during this time, like the hunter is going to be trying to figure out where they're at. They're going to be trying to find out who is the witch, because one of those villagers is going to be the witch. And the witch is trying to fill up that person with their favorite tokens to be able to perform that ritual. But if they just go straight for that person, they're going to put themselves at risk, because essentially the hunter, they have an ability where they can just kill a villager. And if they kill the witch, then they win the game. They manage to eliminate the witch from the village. Everyone's saved. Woohoo! But yeah, so that is the goal of the hunter. So now the witch has to be kind of clever about how they put out their tokens. How do they distribute their favorite tokens? How do they hide who the real witch is? Because one of the loss conditions for the hunter is the fact that if they kill 3 villagers and it's not the witch, yeah, the villagers get a little upset and the hunter loses. So luckily you get 2 freebies in there, which is a little concerning. But either way, you're really trying to figure out, deduce how, like, which person that witch is. Now, you do have a suspects pile. You can actually burn through this pile and like reduce the option, or reduce the number of suspects you have out on the board. And the hunter does have some restrictions. Now they're a little arbitrary. It's like you gotta have a clue token. You gotta investigate all of the villagers before where you're allowed to actually just murder one of the villagers. Yeah, so there are some kind of arbitrary restrictions around what happens in the game, but they really make it so the game can really reach this finale. And that's what I feel like I reach in every time I played Pagan. I've always worried that the game's going to fall flat one time. Like my friend and I, we've discussed and we've said, like, one of these times, Pagan is just going to, like, we're going to, like, the hunter's going to kill the witch super early and the game's just going to be over. And we're going to be like, wow, that was a waste of our time. But so far, I think we played it like 5 times, and every single time we reach the end and it's just super tense. It's like we both needed like one more turn to win the game. And it's just a phenomenal design. It's a really, really good 2-player game. Moving on to number 4, and this is going to be my favorite. Well, okay, this might be kind of a lie. Right now, it's my favorite co-op game. Because we have one more game that can be co-op, but I played it solo more, so you know what, we're going to call this one my favorite co-op game. Number 4 is Eternal Decks. Now, this is a game that I think pre-orders just came up for again on the Portland Game Collective. So if you are interested in this, definitely check it out. And I think this game is just phenomenal. This is a brilliant card game out of Japan. The way this game is going to work, I played it at 2 and 4 players, but essentially all players are going to get like a specific color of cards. I think they're numbered like 1 to 5 in the beginning. Then you have this beautiful board out on the table, and you're going to have these rows that are going to be, they have certain requirements on how you can play cards into those rows. But if you manage to complete a row, at the end of that row are the Eternals. So each row has 3 Eternals, and basically if you complete a row, you get to awaken one of those Eternals. And awakening an Eternal is 2 steps. Basically, you get to awaken it, you can put it up in this top zone, and then you also get the deck of cards underneath that Eternal. That becomes your new deck. You put it on the bottom of your current deck. And this is how you stay alive, because if someone doesn't have cards during the game, you guys lose. Like, if they can't play, then you are done. So you need to manage reviving these Eternals so people can continually revive their decks. Eternal decks, right? You're trying to maintain having a deck so you can continue playing cards into those rows. Now, those rows will have different requirements on them. Some are going to be like, these cards have to be ascending, or these cards have to be descending, or these cards have to be played in a certain color order. But the problem is that, you know, each player starts with just one color card. So you have to depend on your other teammates to play the cards in the right way to achieve the objective for that row, to reach that Eternal, to unlock that extra deck. And then you have some things where that Eternal that you revived, they are now going to have a curse. So they're going to be like, you can't play 6s anymore, or you can't play red cards anymore. And the only way you can get rid of that curse is by negating it by giving it this jewel. So there's ways you can discard cards to give Eternals jewels to negate their curses. And yeah, I've played through, I think, the base scenario, so I'm on like scenario 4 or something. I've done, I think, 3 of the earlier scenarios. Now I'm on scenario 4. It's like I'm fighting a boss now. Like, the game changes up. There's a lot of variability in the game. It has changed up so much, like the way that it plays, the system that you're trying to solve. It's crazy that it's not the same game over and over, and it's crazy that this person stuffed so much game into this box. It is honestly blowing me away. I think it is yeah. I need to do a full review on it. It's a phenomenal design. Eternal Decks it might be like game of the year or something for me. We'll see. Okay, let's move on. So next up is my number 3 game, and this is going to be, this is the one that, like I said, it probably is my top co-op game, but I've been playing it mostly solo recently, and this is going to be Oathsworn. Oathsworn, I think you might be able to see it. We got it back here behind the red panda. Oathsworn is a story boss battler. So there's 2 phases of the game. There's going to be, the first phase is going to be the story phase, where you get to kind of listen to this story. You get to make a few choices during the story, but I'm not going to call it a choose your own adventure. I feel like that's a mistake to call these games a choose your own adventure. Board games don't have, you know, the freedom of like a video game or whatever. So you're not really choosing your own adventure. You are kind of on this linear narrative that you're going to be following. Now, things can happen that are going to change up how you experience that narrative, which I think is what's important in this. Is like, you're going to see different things depending on the characters you are and the choices you make during this narrative. They're going to have different impacts on you going into these battles. So I feel like it does a really good job of really bringing me into that narrative, making me feel like I have some choice in this. I will admit, I had one friend that he didn't care for it at all. He's like, it's fantasy, whatever, let's just move on to the battle step. Like, these choices, all of them are bad, so blah blah blah. I don't know. He he was a bit of a downer with this game. For me, I love the story, I love the narration, the app they did a fantastic job on. I love making those decisions that come up during the story, and then the boss battler system, it has no right to be that good. Like a game with this well of a developed story, like this good of a text behind it, having this good of a boss battler system is just crazy. So your characters, they're going to have kind of like their own little deck of cards, and it's going to be another little hand management system where you're going to be playing these cards down into this little circular board or a cooldown system, and you have like a 3, 2, and a 1 zone and a 0 zone. So at the beginning of a round or whatever, you get to take all cards back in the 0 back into your hand. But the problem is that these don't really like cool down anyway. You actually have to play a card into one of those zones to be able to push those cards in the cooldown. So if you play a 3, you get to cool down those cards in the 3. And then if you play a 2, you can cool down the cards in the 2. The problem is like your most powerful cards are those 3 cards. And it's going to take you a while to get those 3 cards back. So managing the system of like using your abilities and then managing to get those things to rotate back around using that cooldown system is just an amazing puzzle during the game. Like, and each character feels unique. If you're into kind of like, if you're into imagining things, like bringing stories to life in your mind, like I get a very cinematic experience during this thing. Like the Barbarian, I just remember him all the time. Like he has one move where he gets to like jump off of an obstacle and land on the other side of the boss and then hit him with their axe, and I just see that in my mind when I'm playing this game. Now, the other thing that's really cool in this is the reaction system of the boss. Like it has this dice-based system that's going to be managing its health. And as you take out these dice on the boss, they're going to react at different, when you break those locations. And those reactions can be incredibly detrimental to you because that basically gives the boss a bonus action, because they're always going to act during their turn. Like once you run out of your little energy crystals or whatever, and you're going to have to be like, okay, now it's the boss's turn, they're always going to take an action. But if you break one of their locations, they are going to react immediately, and they're going to target the person that broke it. They're going to whip around and just be like, ha, take you out or whatever. So you have to be very deterministic about when do you break those locations, which character do you use to break that location, and the way that the damage is dealt. Oh man, they did a brilliant thing where they're like, oh, we have dice, we can use dice to roll this thing, but they're like, oh, but some people might like cards, so maybe they can do a little bit of card counting and be a little more controlled about their system. They're just like, we're going to put in both. So every time you attack, you actually get to make the choice. Do you want to use dice on your attack and just take that randomness? Or do you want to draw from this deck of cards, which you can actually see that this card, you know what cards are left in there, has the same distribution as the dice, but you actually get to see like, oh, you know what? There were a lot of blanks that were drawn from this one deck already. So I think that this deck is kind of like really hot right now, and we could actually do a lot of damage if we drew from this deck. And it's just a brilliant choice they made where, yeah, maybe you push your luck and you're like, I'm going to roll a bunch of dice and just try to do that damage, because right now none of these decks are good, so I can't use these. But occasionally you can set yourself up to do those big attacks by managing those decks, managing that card counting. Oh yeah, so that is Oathsworn. Oathsworn is a phenomenal design. Really good if you want to get into that story thing, but it is a campaign game. That's the downside. You know, campaign games, they're hard to work through. There's 21 sessions in Oathsworn, and every time you bring out a new boss, it is going to be some learning. You gotta learn how that boss acts, and managing those new, like that new setup, it's a bit of a pain at the table. So you got to be willing to kind of work through that. But I do think that Oathsworn it's worth it. It's been worth it for me. Moving on, we are now into my number 2 board game, and this is another 2-player game. Dune: War for Arrakis. Now, Dune: War for Arrakis is, it's basically the new version of War for the Ring. War for the Ring I have also played, and I do really like that. I think that was back in my top 50 or so, maybe somewhere in 50 to 40 range. War for the Ring, it's a fantastic thematic experience. Dune: War for Arrakis, though, I feel like it streamlined the system in War for the Ring. It made the game snappier, it made it more interesting, it made it a little more dynamic. I felt like War for the Ring was a little bit plotting. It's still a fantastic like thematic experience, especially if you're into the fantasy theme, if you're into Lord of the Rings. A great game to dive into if you want to invest the time required to learn it. Whereas War for Arrakis, I felt like this was way easier to learn, way easier to teach, way easier to table, and provided with a fantastic head-to-head war game experience. Now, I will admit that the first time I played this game, I was not so hot on it. I was like, I don't know. But I bought it, and so if it wasn't mine, I probably wouldn't have gotten it back to the table. You know, that's me being selfish. But I was like, you know what? I got to give this another shot. Brought it out a second time, and then the second game I was like, okay, I kind of see what's going on here. This is neat. Third game, that's where it blew me away. Like, it was one of my best gaming experiences I've ever had. It was an incredibly tight match, I think I was, wow, I am totally blanking. We got the Harkonnens and the Atreides. There we go. Totally blanked on those. I was being the Atreides, I was fighting the Harkonnens, and it came down to the wire. Like, it came down to that moment that I talked about in Pagan, where it's just like, I needed one more turn, and I would have won or I would have lost or whatever if we made it one more round or whatever. And I just find that those games that manage to pull off those experiences where it gets so tense at the end, where you're just going head to head with your opponent, and it's like, if I plan this out right, this is going to work in my favor. And I feel like the game also does a good job with the dice. I feel like the dice are a little bit swingy, but they are very, very controllable, very predictable with those battles. Like those battles, they're not crazy swingy. Like they're a little swingy, but they're not crazy over the top swingy. Like, you know, Andromeda's Edge behind me for me. Andromeda's Edge battle system, crazy swingy. Whereas, yeah, Dune War for Arrakis is a little more controlled. You can know what's going to happen. You have an idea. It's hard to fight settlements because they have a lot of defense. So you have an idea of what the outcome of a battle is going to be, and you might have to throw more troops than you want to at a battle. But it does a fantastic job of giving players that little bit of randomness to make them or force them into those tactical decisions. Plus, a really good thematic tie-ins to the Dune universe with the idea of the sandworms coming out and fighting the Harkonnen troops, and then the Atreides can use them for sand riding and use them like a little subway system. They get a lot more movement than the Harkonnens, but the Harkonnens also have like the ornithopters, and that can allow them to move over these mountain ranges to get to those sieges and take over those sieges or take out those sieges to get their victory points during the game. Then there's fun tie-ins to the books with like reaching certain levels, unlocking new characters like the Paul becoming Muad'Dib, and then Jessica becoming, or Lady Jessica becoming Reverend Mother Jessica. Like cool things that happen during that system. And then it's also interesting that the sand, it's kind of like it's not an afterthought because it matters for the Harkonnens, but it doesn't feel critical to the Harkonnens because sand it was always a representation of kind of like oil and power in the real world, right? So it's kind of like this thing where Harkonnens really just care about power and controlling this system. The sand itself is like, yeah, we can make more of it, we can make less of it. It doesn't matter. Like we're gonna do whatever we want. We just want to have power over this planet. And yeah, I have a fantastic time with Dune. I cannot wait to get it back to the table. I backed some of those expansions. I am super excited that CMON finally announced that they're finishing production on those expansions. Oh man, that was stressful. But yep, I 100% want to get Dune War for Arrakis back to the table. One of the reasons that I reread the first Dune book, I got way into Dune again after playing that game. So yeah, number 2 game. Fantastic dueling experience if you're willing to take the time to learn it. Nowhere near as hard to learn as War of the Ring, but I am more into sci-fi as well, so I think it just hits a little better for me. And we are now on to my number 1 game, and yeah, this is another Dune game. So Dune has taken my number 1 and 2 spot. I don't know, maybe it's something to do with my sci-fi, maybe it's something to do with my interest in sci-fi, maybe it's something to do with the fact that I just reread Dune like in the last 6 months here. Really got me into the Dune universe. But Dune, Imperium, Uprising. I want to be specific on that. This is Uprising. Dune Imperium Uprising is my number 1 game right now. I absolutely love it. We got it back on the shelf right back here. This one, I think I've only played it at 4 players, to be honest with you. I've been lucky enough where I think I've always had more people that wanted to play it than I had available spots to play the game. So I've always played this at 4 players, which I feel like is probably where it shines. I want to try it at 3. I don't know, 2 seems wrong. I also kind of want to try the 6-player mode. I've heard that can be a really interesting experience. But other than that, moving on, Dune Imperium has a few of the mechanics that I just actually has a lot of things that I love. First up, worker placement. Worker placement is one of my favorite mechanics. Like I love it in Whistle Mountain, I love it in Viticulture, I love it in Everdale, I love it in just Cryo. Like there are so many games with worker placement in my top 100 that I absolutely enjoy. And worker placement, it's great. It's one of those things where it's just, you have to constantly be worried about what other people want to do on their turns, like what they need to do on their turns. You have to look out there and be like, well, I'm going to hold off on going to that spot because I need to go to this spot first. But then you look at it and you're like, well, John over there really needs to go to that spot. So you know what? I might need to go to that spot first before they go there so I can actually do that action. And that blocking mechanic is just so harsh in games. And yeah, it's one of those things where being tactical, being reactive to what other players are doing, it keeps me engaged in a game. Like I don't like games where I can just plan things out. I want to be able to see what someone does and be like, okay, I need to respond to that action. Then I do something, they have to respond to me, and then like just that experience of trying to stay on your toes is really fun. So worker placement, yeah. This is a top-notch worker placement. Now, the card system. The cards are required for the worker placement. This is a deck builder, so I also have a lot of deck builders in my top 100. Now, like Clank Catacombs and Tyrants in the Underdark, and yeah, hopefully some more. Maybe I'm wrong. But like I've said before, deck builders are something that I always need something else to go with the deck builder. Like Dominion, just the straightforward deck builder, or even Star Realms. You know, I like playing Star Realms, but it's just a straightforward deck builder. I feel like it doesn't have enough decisions when I play the cards. Whereas Dune Imperium, I have to make those decisions. I'm going to use probably 3 of them, well, 2 to 3 of them, for worker placement, because I have to play a card to send my worker out. Like it's not just like send a worker out and place it there. You have to have the card in your hand that has the right location to go to. You're going to play that card, then send the worker to that location. So you have to choose, like, what card do I play for my worker? Because you also want to save cards, or you're going to be saving cards for that reveal step, because that reveal step is going to trigger the things on the bottom of those cards, which are going to be other bonuses. Maybe move you up on the battle track, maybe give you some extra purchasing power. Just some things that you're like, oh, I need to save this card for the purchasing step, but it has the worker location I need to go to, and you're just trying to make that choice. Like, you don't draw a hand of cards and just say, oh, this is what I'm doing. Like in Dominion, you draw a hand of cards like, this is what I'm doing. In Dune Imperium, you're looking at your hand of cards like, oh, I need to use this one for this, I need to use that one for that. Like, you have a lot of decisions to make when you draw your hand of cards. So, fantastic. Next up, bidding for the combat. Because basically, this is a opt-in battle system. Basically, you're going to go to these spots, they're going to have sword symbols on them, then you can actually commit troops from your garrison to the battle. You're not actually attacking anyone directly, you're just committing troops. You're just saying, I want to be in combat. And then other players are like, oh, you're in combat, so I'm going to go into combat. And then another player is like, well, I don't want you guys to win the combat, I'm going to go into combat. Because you're competing over these limited number of prizes on this little combat prize card. You can collect those cards for points and do an Imperium Uprising. There's going to be some points later on in the game, like as you get to that 3rd stage, those are going to be worth more points. So you're kind of opting into that combat, and you have to make that decision. Is this combat worth opting into? Because your garrison will be depleted if you do. So you're going to look at that one and you're going to be like, well, I might hold off on this one. Like, maybe you're in kind of stage 2 of those combat cards. Rewards go up. Then you start at stage 1, then you go to stage 2, then you end on stage 3. Rewards get better and better. And maybe you're like, oh, this is the last of the stage 2 cards. You know what? I'm going to hold back on my troops. I'm going to let these other guys fight it out, and I'm going to keep these guys back so I can actually win, or hopefully win, that stage 3 card. So yeah, you have to make that decision. Do you want to opt into that combat or not by going to those spots and reducing your garrison and then seeing how other players respond? So I love the fact that you're never attacking anyone directly. You are choosing to kind of participate in that battle for that round. Then the other thing that happens in this is the other thing that I really enjoy about this game are the chaos cards, the intrigue cards. So there's this whole deck called the intrigue cards, which you can kind of go out, you can go and send your worker to certain spaces, collect some of those intrigue cards, and those intrigue cards are going to be random ways to break the game. It's going to be like, oh, you can play this intrigue card during combat and you get 5 extra power. And this is just like a surprise to other players. Like, you maybe have one troop in there and they threw in 3 and they're like, oh, I got the win here. And then you're like, I play my intrigue card to give me 5 extra power. And they're like, what the hell? Come on, man. Really? So yeah, I like the fact that you have this deck of cards that just adds that chaos. You see other people holding these cards, and now you have to be a little more cautious around it. You have to say, what are you capable of? What are you gonna do on your turn? What can you do on your turn? So yeah, I just love the fact that that deck exists. I like games that bring out that element of chaos. Now, this is where I'm going to mention that Dune Imperium versus Dune Imperium Uprising. Dune Imperium I have played before. It does feel a little more controlled. It feels a little less chaotic. It feels a little harder to get points in. And I understand why some people will say that it feels like the more competitive experience, the more controlled competitive experience. I haven't dove into kind of all the intricacies of Dune Imperium versus Dune Imperium Uprising and to determine if one is more balanced than the other. I frankly don't care. I don't. I just know that Dune Imperium Uprising adds things that I really enjoy in the game. I love the fact that it has the sandworms they can pull in, which are going to add to the thematic experience of Dune. The other things are going to be like the spies. The spies are just brilliant because this can reduce the just the odds of you being kind of locked out of a location, because you can have a spy token down there which can allow you to override that worker placement requirement, the thing where someone can block out a space. If you have a spy on a space where someone goes to, you can still go to that space, so you can kind of protect your future turns by putting spies out on the map. So I think Dune Imperium Uprising just takes this game of Dune Imperium and just elevates it. It elevates it into a game that I love playing. Like I said, though, I am not the player that's going for that competitive that super competitive experience. I want to do these things where I can have that just fun experience where I get to do things, to explore strategies that are just like, oh, this seems really fun. Oh, that seems really cool. Let's give this a shot. So yeah, that's Dune Imperium Uprising. We got worker placement, opt-in battle system, deck building, and the chaos cards, the intrigue cards. 4 fantastic things. And then sandworms. Who can hate sandworms? Okay, so there we go. We did it. We made it. That's the end of my top 10. Hopefully you got something out of this series. Hopefully you learned about some games. Hopefully I introduced you to some games that you never heard of. Like I said, check out the other ones in this top 100 series if you want to see the rest of my game choices. But yeah, that'll do it for today. So thank you for watching. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I will talk to you next time.